Test, test, test.
Oh, yeah. Can you get it set though to the, sure.
Test, test, test. Is that on? Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Ready, Phil? Okay. I'd like to bring this special meeting of council meeting to order at 3:03 p.m. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Slutin?
Present.
Councilmember Overton?
Here.
Councilmember Harris?
Here.
And Mayor Kramer?
Here. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Snowden, will you lead us?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have anyone to?
Probably not today. Yeah.
No.
It's a special.
Okay, we will move on to consent items. Mr. Flora, any changes as presented, modifications?
Nope.
All right, I will,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
second.
okay, motion is made by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Vice Mayor Slotin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay, or any against? Seeing none, passes. Okay, the next item 4, consideration of radio infrastructure upgrades for the police department. Mr.
Yeah,
Flora.
Chief White has a presentation. We'll give the staff report.
Okay.
Oh. Try it again, Andrew. It gave you a new code.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. We're here tonight, or this afternoon, to request permission to purchase radio equipment and contract for installation services. By way of background, the police department uses two-way radio as our primary means of communication for emergency and non-emergency. In short, our system is desperately in need of both replacement equipment for equipment that's either past its service life or has failed. We've had repeated radio failures that have taken down either part or the entire system as recently as just a few weeks ago. Our system also, too, lacks basic protections that should be in a public safety radio system, such as lightning protection and grounding for a public safety radio system. Our current system consists of a wooden pole outside, similar to like a PG&E power pole. The land mass and basically the configuration of the city is such that using that as a primary site is very challenging because of topography with the hills and not clear line of sight. And so what happens is we have something called a talk-in issue, where when units in the field try to talk into dispatch, dispatch can't hear them, nor can the other units in the field because of the way the repeater system works. This jeopardizes the officer safety and then obviously community safety because either the officer can't get the help that they need or they can't update dispatch to request additional resources or let them know what's going on. And it's been a problem for quite some time. There's critical incident situations that would happen. One example is a person who had somebody at gunpoint, and if you can imagine the practicalities of it, but they have them at gunpoint and they've literally raised their radio in the air to try to get coverage. So it's a very tenuous situation. The department did add a few years ago a backup repeater to St. Helena Hospital, Clearlake, to try and improve coverage in the area. But essentially the way that works is it's more of a backup repeater, so the officer has to change their radio channel when they're in the area that might get better coverage. And that's not practical in an emergency situation or really even day to day, because it's up to the officer to make a judgment call on what the actual radio coverage is in the particular area that they're at. And that's something that we don't want them to have to think about amongst all the other things that they have to deal with. So late last summer, we started looking at a bunch of different options and determined that a voted radio system would be the best solution. Essentially, without going into all the technical details of it, with a voted radio system, you put kind of listening posts at different places in the coverage area, and there's a device that sits at the police department. It listens to those, and then as an officer transmit, it decides which one is the best signal at that moment in time, and we'll use that to send out to everybody else into dispatch. And that occurs all the time during a transmission. So you can imagine if an officer's chasing somebody, walking around, moving, also to the way that radios work, even if I stayed completely stationary, the coverage can actually change in real time based upon anything that happens between where the radio is at and the repeater. So we looked at that. The second phase of that was determining where we would locate the sites. We determined that using the existing hospital site would be cost effective because for one, it has good coverage within that area. It's already a built out site. And so we would just need to add a link from there back to the station. We were able to engage a firm that actually provided at no cost. They did all the radio modeling for us. And we found that there's a water tower site on Woods in Eureka that's up pretty high. And would be a good location to add coverage. It would help us in the avenues area and the areas where we currently have coverage issues. We contacted the Canocti Water District, which owns that site, and they've been in contact. We worked through the manager. The board is aware of it. They're supportive. We're still in the process of developing a contract, but we believe that we'll be able to move forward. We've also been in contact with the cellular phone company, which we'd have to co-locate in their building at that location, and they're supportive as well. The proposed project would not address two needs that remain within the radio system. One is that we believe that there's likely going to be another voting site required towards Clearlake Park area based upon the predictive analysis. The second part is that our antenna pole here needs to be replaced with a purpose-built tower, and ideally one that's actually taller to provide better coverage. It would also support future network expansion, such as microwave connectivity between city buildings and parks. But at this time, we're recommending that those be further analyzed, and we would address those in a second phase. So we have a quote from Precision Wireless in the amount of $57,765.95. That quote includes equipment that meets or exceeds contract pricing provided to the New York State government contract with Kenwood. And their proposal would include the items that I discussed with regards to the additional replacing all the equipment, replacing the antennas, and building out the site at the hospital with the additional equipment that it needs, and also to the site at the water tower location. They would also integrate it with our existing radio dispatch consoles. What I wanted to do real quickly was just play some audio so you can get a sense of what the officers have to deal with and the scope of the problem. So we'll see if this will work here. That's an officer calling for help. So one of those incidents actually happened this morning where officers were calling for help. It ended up taking, I believe, over 5 officers to subdue a subject that was being combative. And most of the initial radio traffic, we couldn't determine what was going on other than that they needed help. Fortunately, we knew that where they were at. but critical information needs to be relayed. Like in this case, the person needed medical attention, and so they needed to relay that, and it's important they can get those messages out through the two-way radio. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilwoman Overton?
And we've had this problem, and I know the police have complained about this for, bless their hearts, for putting up with it for so long. How much clearer, is it going to be like really a lot clearer? Do you have an example by any chance of how clear it's going to be?
So it's not, no solution is perfect, but what you heard there in those areas, according to the predictive analysis, should be much better. And it would sound more, where you could actually discern what they're saying. We have areas in the city where it is very good, like when we're by the police department and so forth. Or if they're talking on a car radio, that's putting out a lot of power, so it's clear. But we would expect with the combination of the voting system, also to the antennas here, just to give you a situation, the state of the antennas. When we had the failure a couple weeks ago, we went in trying to work through stuff. I was working with the engineer who was about 4 hours away, and we decided there would be, one solution would be is to switch one radio to another one to overcome the piece that failed. And he told me, well, you can't plug it into this antenna that's plugged into the other one because that antenna is a bad antenna. So literally you have stuff practically held together with baling wire and tape.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris?
So just out of curiosity, is there more of a comprehensive digital kind of a system that would be much more effective than what we're discussing today? Is this sounds like sort of an analog type style of system? I'm just curious to see if there is a possibility of spending more for a much higher quality radio communication, so that we wouldn't have to potentially do a second try at this down the road.
So this system that would be put in place is digital capable. At this point, we could not go digital because in a digital system, whereas there in fringe coverage areas, we can still make out some of the audio. With the digital, it's an all or nothing. In terms of additional stuff, I think the phase 2 addresses the items that could be done now, like the antenna, to put in the actual antenna structure, which would give you greater height and we could get better receive. Those are kind of the options. Our portable radios, most of them are digital capable, so we could upgrade to that at some point. The holding back on that, though, isn't necessarily a decision on our part per se, in so much that we have other agencies that come in the area and use the radio system, and they don't necessarily have capable equipment yet. So that's what we're looking. The other additional part, as I mentioned, we believe that there's likely going to be an additional site needed up towards Clearlake Park. The issue is we haven't worked out with any landowner where we could actually locate that. So that's why we believe right now is to phase it in with this right now and then see where we're at from there.
My only concern would be that, obviously, that this has always been a major concern of mine. And I think that if we're going to make the significant effort towards alleviating the issues, I would like to see it in a rapid way, because I think that there's no real dollar figure on the safety of the officers or our citizens. So absolutely, whatever I think we could do, cost prohibitive, but we would be in our best interest to move forward with. If you feel like that, for example, if you already have the numbers on the tower here, and is that something we could find out about right now, or?
So the challenge with the tower, we have approximate numbers. We believe it's somewhere between 50 to 60,000 for the tower. Our issue is that if we start doing the tower, it's going to delay it even longer. So in talking with the engineer, the only part of that we would do kind of paying for the same thing twice would be the cabling from inside the building to outside the building. But outside of that, everything else would be transferable. So that's why our recommendation is to move forward now as quickly as possible, get them started. We believe that we can get some of this done in the next 60 days. At least adding the second site with the hospital will immediately cause an improvement. And then as we work out the details with the water tower site, it adds on. And there's a bunch of math involved, but essentially as you overlay these, it's not like, adding the second site that it only gets twice as better. It actually gets exponentially better as you add more receive sites to the system.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Yeah, no interest in delaying any aspect of it. I just want to do the very best we can with what we have to work with. Thank
I'm
you so
sure
much.
we'll be back soon for the
Thank you so
tower.
much for your efforts on this.
Vice Mayor Slotin?
Say, Andrew, Chief, we have, over the last couple of years, we have approved several cell sites. And one of the conditions was that you could add your antenna stuff on it. Are you using that at all?
So at this point, we're not leveraging that for the water tower site, even though it is co-located with the cell company. There is a possibility, I believe there's a new tower going in the Clearlake Park area, so we would explore that as an option. The only issue with those co-locations is oftentimes they're significantly more expensive than attaching, say, at a water tower site or some other government-owned site. But that's something that we're certainly going to look at for that area and anywhere else that we identify still has coverage issues after doing this, assuming this is approved.
Because I think we approved the site in the Avenue someplace, and there's one behind up here too, so it would be advantageous maybe to look into that.
Yeah, I believe that it's been a standard condition on our use
Right.
permits for cell towers for a few years at least, so we have that option if we need to exercise it.
So just to reiterate, what you do now will not have to be redone when the phased-in, additional phased-in things happen?
The only piece that has to be redone is the antenna cabling that would go from the building to the antennas outside here at the PD would have to be redone when a new tower is put in, because obviously it would hopefully be higher, and they would have to reconfigure that.
Okay, but it's not something that's going to be done and then going to have to be taken down and done again. It's just changed at that time.
No, I think in evaluating it, the benefit that we would gain by doing now far outweighs any cost. And again, it's some cabling costs and some labor to move it to the new tower.
Relatively minor in the scope of the project.
Yeah, in the grand scope of thing, it's minor. And then again, when you weigh all the other benefits of it, it clearly outweighs.
Okay. Any other questions from council? I'll take it to the public. Any comments? Okay, then.
They're ganging up on us.
So I knew you guys were just sitting out there listening.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I'm Sergeant Snyder. I'm with the Middle Management Association. To my right is Officer Harden. He's with the Police Officer Association. And then Captain Timothy Selly. Association. I'm here as the longest employee of the Clearlake Police Department, started in 1995. This has always been a problem for us, as you well know. Some of you folks have ridden with us. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity and thank the chief for bringing this forward so we can address this problem, hopefully once and for all, and maybe make some upgrades. But, we've tested some sites. We've tested some water tower sites, and they were pretty good, but they were noisy sites. So this seems like a really good option for us, and I think it'll solve the problem and help our officers. I can tell you many, many stories where officers have been calling for help. It happened today, early. Alan, the city manager, was there. We were in a meeting, and I couldn't understand what was going on. All I knew was somebody was yelling on the radio, and we couldn't hear him. We didn't know the location right away. So thank God we had the computers in the cars so that we can figure out where everybody was and those types of things. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity for hearing this tonight and supporting this, because our men and women put their lives on the line every day, and we need to give them the equipment that's available to them. And if we have the means and the opportunity, I say we move forward. Once again, thank you once again. And this is a main concern for the officers and the employees. In the middle of the night, imagine being out there by yourself in the woods, and the only form of communication is that radio. And as you heard several examples, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've looked at a lot of radio systems along with the chief over the years. This is a different type of system versus the conventional system. And as the chief had mentioned, is talking about voting is as you add more, it increases the signal. So this is an expandable system that can be expanded on through the future versus a more traditional system that uses one repeater with one channel. So as you move from repeaters
repeaters or switching channels or knobs on your radio. This type of system allows it to analyze the signal based upon where you're located by the voter repeater, and then say, hey, I have the best signal, I'm going to use that to transmit out. So as we add more, as we expand, it will just get better. So that's all I have. I want to thank you for your time. Mark, would you like to add something?
Sure. Just to piggyback off what they said already, I wanted to bring up some notable incidents in my mind, the radio system. The first one being the fire in the avenues several years ago. The radio system completely quit working for a period of time, which required us to revert to cell phones. You can kind of imagine with that many officers evacuating people, it was really difficult. The second being the sulfur fire. We couldn't hear the operations center when we were on portable. I think Sergeant Joseph in the back, we were working in pairs that night, and when we go out on portables, we couldn't communicate. And again, evacuating that many people makes it really difficult. Another example is a potentially deadly force encounter where someone was trying to stab me with a screwdriver. I couldn't get out on the radio, and I had to revert to repeatedly pushing the button in the hopes that someone would hear that and know that's kind of a unwritten distress code. Unfortunately, they heard it. Lastly, I can just put out the numerous foot pursuits and crimes in progress where a swift response is needed, and once you get out of the car, the radio system basically fails us and we have to go to cell phones. So that's all I have.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, officers. Your safety is definitely the highest thing in our mind, so know that. Mr. Flora, is this going to be would this be planned to be in the 1920 budget then, or?
No, we, because we feel like it's critically important to do this now. There's more than adequate salary savings in PD's current budget for this fiscal year, and so we would anticipate funding it with the savings in this year's budget and be able to move forward as soon as possible.
Good. Are there any other public comments on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to purchase radio equipment and contract for installation services from Precision Wireless Service and adopt resolution number 2019-29, waiving the competitive formal bidding process.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilman Harris and seconded by Vice Mayor Slotin. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Motion passes. All right. Well, that brings us to one last piece of business here tonight. Consideration of appointment of a new council member to fill the vacancy ending in November 2020. Mr. Flora, how do we proceed?
I'll turn over to City Clerk Swanson.
Honorable Mayor and council members, as you know, on May 9th, former Mayor Bennett announced his resignation from the city council effective immediately. He was elected in November of 2018. His term expires November of 2020. According to the government code, there is a procedure for filling elected city office vacancies in general law cities, which the city of Clear Lake is a general law city. The council shall, within 60 days of commencement of the vacancy, either fill it by appointment or call a special election. On May 13th, the council directed myself to advertise the vacancy for appointment with a June 4th deadline. We received 5 applications, so what we would ask the council to do is tonight, or this afternoon, interview the applicants, and then at the end, by motion and second, you would then adopt the resolution, which is also attached in the staff report, appointing a new council member for the term ending November 2020.
I could just add on, so we actually had 6 applicants, I think 5 of which are here, is that right?
Excuse me, 6.
So just to make sure everyone's clear, the sixth applicant is interested in being appointed, but is not available for an interview tonight. So the process from here would be, we've prepared some numbers, so the applicants would draw numbers to see what order they're interviewed in. Then all the applicants would go to the conference room and come out one at a time to be interviewed.
Okay, is that drawing of numbers been,
I think we're prepared to do that now.
Got it.
okay? So I guess have the applicants stand or come up or stand where they are and. And you'll go to them.
Four. So two of them haven't shown.
I see 4.
There are two of them that are not here. Desiree and
Christina.
Christina.
Christina, I talked to her, she said she was gonna be here too.
There are two of them not here.
Christina and Desiree.
Your phone.
My allergies just start going, and that's like that.
They're not here, they're not here.
I talked to her earlier. She was gonna be here, yeah. Anyway.
Delivery can change things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty ambitious to come during the delivery, so that would, if that's the case.
You all have your questions?
Yep.
I don't have questions. Do we have questions? No? Where was it?
It was laying on yours.
Got 1 minute, Tommy, here?
If you don't, I have an extra copy. Have it? Okay.
Person read them, but.
Are you ready for the first one?
Sure.
And Melissa, that'd be,
I believe Patty Duke.
So where's the last one in the package?
I printed mine out at work because it was too hard for me to keep doing.
Mr. Selly, I have your
I had to
rookie
do the
card.
day while I was trying to read people's things. I was like, oh, gotta put these ones out.
Gonna need a signature on that.
good afternoon, Ms. Duke.
My name's Patty Duke, and whether I'm here or whether I'm there, I'm going to be here to find out what's going on in our city.
Okay.
So, a little bit about me.
Let me back.
Yes.
I'm supposed to ask that question of you.
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Go ahead. So you've introduced yourself, and we want you to explain, first question is explain why you are interested in being appointed to the city council.
So I know what's going on in this city. I need to know what's happening, and it's really hard. There's really not that much news. So without coming here to the city council and seeing what's being brought forward, who knows? And I'm always feel bad that there's not enough public of our citizens here to come to the meetings. So I am looking forward to Clearlake continuing to grow. We have a wonderful chief, police chief, who has changed up things. So I want to be part of that. So,
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sutton?
Hi, Patty.
hi.
How has your experience, education, and/or work history prepared you to be a city council member?
Oh, education and work history. Starting out as an IHSS, then a CNA, then a home health aide, then an LVN, then an RN, and working at many hospitals. The only committee I was on was the Nursing Advisory Committee at Enloe Medical Center in Chico, because nobody else was brave enough to apply to basically fight for our rights on our floor. So I was on that committee for about 2 years. And when you're working as a nurse, you do have your little committees, that's your team, that you have to work with and work out problems and work with families and work with patients and work with the administrator and pretty much work with everyone. So I'm used to working with people. And active listening is really important.
Okay, council members. Overton?
What do you know about the current issues facing the city?
Not that much, other than what's brought forward in this meeting. There's really not good news about what's going on in our city.
Councilmember Harris.
I know.
Patty?
Oh,
I'm sorry, were you not finished? I'm
Are
sorry.
we not
go
done?
ahead, go ahead.
What do you perceive as the most important issues facing Clearlake, and how do you feel like the council should handle those issues?
Facelift, which is happening, building by building. Our town, I've been here since 2003, working at the hospital, and then I bought property and moved here in 2007, and only recently, in the last couple of years, do I see a change where buildings are demolition and the city's looking better. And we have a police force that is doing well. And now I have citizens saying, wow, we see them all over, they're doing their job. And it's like, wow, that's really nice.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you believe are the 3 greatest strengths of the city of Clearlake?
The police department, for one. I don't know how much money we have to help, to build. Our hospital and our clinic, our health system, our police system, and let me think on the third one. Our local, like our Walmart and our local stores, they do the best they can to support here. And the contrast, I see 5,000 people in Lakeport, 15,000 people here, and there's not enough for 15,000 compared to 5,000 as far as support. I just see more support in Lakeport for less people. And that's a concern.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Vincent, or Vice Mayor Sutton.
If appointed, what would you like to achieve between now and November 2020
Personally or with the committee?
with the council or as a councilman?
Uplifting Clearlake in all ways. I would like to see more of the public here. It just astounds me that I don't see enough of the public here, people that live here. And I know it might make the meeting a little longer, because I'm sure people would have something to say, but I think it's important that the citizens that live here are part of what's going on here. That's my concern.
I agree. Councilmember Overton.
Okay, what would you do as a city council member if you are unsure of a particular, on how to vote on a particular issue? So if you were sitting up here and something come up and you weren't quite sure about the issue that was at hand, how would you handle that?
I would have to confer with other council members. That's what a council's for. I mean, I consider it a team.
The city council must make decisions regarding the policies and programs, and sometimes these may be controversial. How would you balance making decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may personally be somewhat difficult?
I think you'd have to look how it overall affects the people, not just the personal.
Okay, that's actually our last question. Is there anything that you'd like to say in addition to what you've already said?
The only thing I'd like to say is my mom and dad would be proud. My dad was wounded on the Normandy approach, and I just found out today his Purple Heart burnt up in paradise. That's where I raised my kids.
I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who will be joining us next?
We don't know yet. We'll find out.
We don't get that option. You're a council member, you should always be prepared.
Melissa? Oh, I'm sorry.
She's still.
I think I know.
I do now.
Laffy?
Good afternoon, Mr.
Hi there.
Coffey. Please introduce yourself and explain why you're interested in being appointed to the city council.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. My name is David Claffey. I've had the pleasure of working with some of you on the marketing committee, Mr. Harris, Mr. Mayor, only meeting today, but you both have stellar reputations. My background's in financial technology, and I work with marketing and communications teams. Specifically, I've thrived with small businesses and startups. And I've thrived there because unlike big companies, it really requires the leadership to roll up their sleeves and get the job done. And it's something I really enjoy. I enjoy that challenge, and I enjoy the ability to make an impact right off the bat. I feel like that's the same way with government. We have a desire to help people, and we have a vision of how we want to see the city and the county move towards. But you need someone in the room to drive that. You need someone with energy, you need a catalyst, and you need someone who can lead by example. And I think you all have done an amazing job with that. I look at this city council and I see expertise in commercial development, agriculture. I see community advocates who understand the challenges we face with crime. I see entrepreneurs who have had success in good times and bad. And I think that my skill set would be an amazing complement to all of you. And that's branding, that's digital marketing, it's customer acquisition. It's taking a problem, dissecting it, whether it be people living paycheck to paycheck or access to real estate, dissecting it to its roots and then shining a spotlight on what you find. I think in some communities I might not be the best fit, but I think Clearlake's unique in the sense that we're a tourist destination with a branding problem. And yes, there's a bunch of other problems that we have, but I think that's a big one, and I think that's something that I can really, really help with. So, a year and a couple of months, that's the term. I think I can do a lot in that time, and I really want to work alongside all of you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Slotin.
How has your experience, education, and our work history prepared you to be a city council member?
Well, I think, like I said, I have a pretty unique skill set. And, you know, being a city council member, you're required to be a jack of all trades. And working with startups, working with small businesses, even if it's just in the communications and marketing side, I think I've risen to that challenge. So I think on top of the level of expertise I have in one particular subject matter area and my ability to adapt and learn, I think that gives me the tools required to learn from you all and to do a great job for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Overton.
What do you know about the current issues that are facing Clearlake?
Well, I know as much as is publicly distributed, and I think that's one of the things that I want to present as a potential solution. I know we have the airport project, we have issues with crime, we have issues with fire safety, we have issues with algae, we have issues with residential infill. I think the challenge that we sometimes face is the city and the city council is torn in a bunch of different directions, and we're not really using our best tool, and that's the people of the city. As one of my few goals that I'd like to do this term is to put together a communication plan where we take a look at how we communicate with the general population, how they want to be communicated with, and get the word out. I started volunteering with South Shore Little League and Clearlake Youth Soccer. And these are parents who work full-time jobs, and then in the evening, they come and they umpire and they coach and they're just really active. And I look at them and the dedication they put into that. And then I look at myself, who is struggling to find the latest city council meeting on YouTube, and it hasn't been published through Lake County News since, I think, March. And if I'm struggling to find information on the city and I'm actively looking, how are these other folks learning about the great work we're all doing? Measure V is a perfect example, right? Work has started, there's good progress there, and no one's talking about it. People are still complaining. They don't see the progress that's happening because we're not really communicating it well. So that would be one of the things I would focus on.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
What do you perceive as the most important issues facing Clearlake, and how do you feel like the city council should handle those issues?
I think there's two ways to look at it. There's the big issues, which we're going to have. It's going to be housing. It's going to be commercial development. It's going to be jobs. Those are big issues, and those are really tough to solve. And then I look at, all right, in the short term, what could I do in this term? What are some of the things that I could tackle with this appointment, understanding that I don't have a mandate from the citizens, but what are things that I can go in, solve, and do it in a way that doesn't pull a lot of resources from the other big problems? So communication plan is one. Entrepreneurial mentorship, I think, is huge. We have, the one thing I've noticed here in Lake County and in Clearlake is we have so many hardworking, bright individuals who simply don't have the resources they need to take what they're doing to the next level. I work with a lot of founders at these startups, and they have three things in common. They have a great idea, they have that hard work ethic, but they also have resources. And a lot of that comes from mentorship. It comes with talking with VCs. It comes with talking with other CEOs and financial folks that are all in this little bubble. We have some of that here already, but I'd love to work and start bringing all of those resources together and start filling up some of these retail spots with local folks rather than trying to rely on outside investment. Let's start growing from within. And I think a lot of small business woes come down to marketing, quite frankly. And there's things that you can do. You can be super efficient with it so that you're not spending $50,000 on Facebook ads and newspaper ads. You're doing it in a way that really hits your target audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
What do you believe the three greatest strengths of Clearlake are?
Well, I've said it twice now. I think the people. I think a lot of the people that I would love to build around are probably the people who can't show up to city council meetings. Like I said, they're the folks who are working full-time jobs and then going and spending time with their children in the evening. Those are the type of folks that I'd love to work with and support. I think, as always, the lake is an incredible resource. And that, of course, comes down to tourism. And again, another marketing issue, right? It's customer acquisition. Who's coming to the city? What does our brand look like outside of Lake County? And I think everyone who's been here for a while has a certain impression of how people view Clear Lake, but I think it's very different once you get past the mountains. And I think those folks are ripe for acquisition, bringing them into the city and introducing them to some of the wonderful things we have. And then I think the third thing, quite frankly, is the city council.
What?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
Oh, I think the third thing, quite frankly, is the city council. I think it's incredibly varied in terms of expertise.
I honestly didn't hear you that first time through.
It's actually you, Mr. Mayor. You are. But no.
Sucking up to the council.
Yeah, hey. But yeah, no, there's a ton of really hardworking folks here in the city, and it would be an honor to work alongside them.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Slotin?
If you're appointed, what would you like to achieve between now and November 2020?
So I have three things. One is the communications plan. Working with city staff and the city council to not only create something that will inform the public, but do it in a way that doesn't put an extra burden on the city staff. Leveraging tools like IFTT and Sprout Social and all this technology that allows you to communicate rapidly and efficiently, that's all stuff that I have a background with that I think could be applied within the first year. And then beyond that, I'd like to study how people want to consume information. Is it watching a 2-hour video of the city council meeting, or is it watching a 2-minute summary from a city council member? Here are the issues we talked about, and if you want to learn about the topic more in depth, click on this link and you can see the whole meeting. Do they prefer Facebook, Snapchat? Do they prefer podcasts, right? These are all things that I really want to explore because the environment's changing and folks are consuming media digitally. They're not, I won't go into traditional media, but it's probably a mix at this point. So figuring out how they consume that. I think number 2, like I said, is entrepreneurial mentorship. Creating a list of professionals, a group of professionals here in the city, getting them together and start actively recruiting folks with great ideas that are looking to make some change. And it might not be the most profitable thing in the world, but it's going to help the community, and that's something I'd love to be a part of. And then the third thing is obviously hospitality and tourism. I think I can make a big impact there. It may not be immediate in the first year, but I think we just passed this tourism district. There's over $200,000 that has been, last I heard, projected to go into this. A lot of that spend is going to be marketing. And if you haven't been on a phone call with the digital marketing agency, if you think politics is bad, then they can talk your ear off. So having that type of oversight on an initiative that really is going to impact the city exponentially, I think is important. And then, of course, doing all the little things that one needs to do, supporting the airport project. Maybe I'm not the lead on that, but there could be marketing components that we discussed. I think there's a lot of areas that I could jump in. I think those 3 things are something that within the first year I could make an impact on.
Thank you. Council Member Overton.
Okay, so what would you do as a council member if you were unsure of an issue on how to vote on? How would you handle that?
Unsure of an issue on how to vote, I would research. I would talk to folks who are subject matter experts in the area. I would talk to my fellow city council members and see why they support a specific position.
Realizing there's a Brown Act situation there, by the
I
way.
would not do that. I would talk to Melissa first and make sure that I am not doing anything wrong. But really, research is really important. You know, when I'm working in the communications field and I have to set up an executive to talk about a specific subject, a lot of research goes into setting up those talking points. And if I'm ever in a position where after all that, I still don't know how to vote, well, I don't know. At that point, we'll find out.
Councilmember Harris.
The city council must make decisions regarding creation of policies and programs that may be controversial at times. How would you balance making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may personally be somewhat difficult for you?
I think it comes back to the research side of things. Anything that I would advocate for, I would want to make sure I've done my due diligence, and I would want to make sure that I have enough confidence in the decision that I'm making that it bucks trends. I've done that in my professional life often. Like I said, I work with a lot of CEOs and a lot of executives who have egos, and they want to do things a certain way, but sometimes that's not always in the best interest of the company. In this case, it's what's in the best interest of Clearlake, and you know, being unpopular is not really an issue if I feel like it can move the city forward.
Thank you. Mr. Clevey, do you have any closing remarks that that we didn't ask about, that you'd like to get out briefly?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank all of you. This is, I've only been here a short time, but every opportunity I have seen to get involved and to help the community, I've jumped at. And that has led to more and more opportunities. And I think that there's so many great things about the folks that I've worked with, the city, that nothing has deterred me yet. And this is just another opportunity, whether you choose to go with me or with someone else, it's not going to stop. I'm going to keep moving forward and helping however I can. So thank you all.
Like your attitude. Thank you. Melissa, who's
Next will be Mr. Purdock.
Good afternoon, Mr. Purdock. You want to
Mayor?
please introduce yourself and explain why you're interested in being appointed to the city council?
Well, good afternoon, all, fellow council members. My name is Russ Purdock. I've lived in the city of Clearlake since it was incorporated, actually voted for it, although I did wish they would have held on to the name Clearlake Highlands instead of Clearlake. But anyway, I digress. I left for college, got my bachelor's degree, came back, spent a little over 24 years working at the Lake County Sheriff's Office, starting as a reserve deputy volunteer and ending as a second in command. Very interested in seeing the Clearlake area develop, prosper, grow. I ran for city council, as you may be aware, about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And I did that because there was a lot of crime. Marijuana was a huge problem with the cultivation of it. We had the highest murder rate that year. And we were able to turn that around. I see there's still a lot of work to do, and I want to be a part of that. I want to finish up essentially what I started. But I was listening to some other folks and went a different direction, but now I think I can come back and finish up what I want to start. I hope that answered your question.
That did. Thank you. Vice Mayor Slotin.
How was your experience, education, and/or work history prepared you to be a city council member?
Well, I have my degree from Sac State. Spent a little over 24 years working for government agencies. I understand that. I understand budgets. And spent a little over 3 years serving on city council, and 2 of that as your mayor.
Councilmember Overton.
So what do you see, what do you know about all the current issues that are facing Clearlake today?
Well, many are the same that were facing Clearlake when I left. I think my frustration, I'm sure you all have experienced, I know you have, Joyce, how slow things work. I mean, I was on council when we were making the decisions to do the curb gutter sidewalk around City Hall, and finally, after these many years, it's happening. So things move slow. I think that was one of my bigger frustrations, but I also have a tenacity when things need to be done. I took it upon myself to do research, essentially come up with draft ordinance. I submitted a couple for city manager to review and bring back to council that were voted on and accepted, pushed for Measure V, and was able to, as you know, get that on the ballot with the help of a couple other council members and many in the community. And I think those are big items while I was here. And I think those are continuing. I think there's some big issues happening along Lake Shore Drive corridor. There's obviously still one big issue is the airport property development, and moving forward on that, I'd like to be a part of that. And of course, just the general cleanup and revitalization of the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
What do you perceive as the most important issues facing Clearlake, and how do you feel like the council should handle those issues?
Well, there's many issues facing Clearlake in the future, but I think one of the things we really need to do is listen to the community, to continue to work with the community. Is one of the things I strived for in transparency when I served on council. We have a lot of work that's already been done. I think sometimes that's forgotten, and we redo work at a cost and at the expense of our time. I think we need to focus on the work that's already been done, the development plans that are already in place, and we need to see those through unless the community directs us to do otherwise.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. What do you believe are the 3 greatest strengths of Clearlake? And I agree with you. I like Clearlake Islands too.
The amazing place that we call home is, I think, one of the biggest strengths. It's a beautiful area. I love, especially this time of year, driving home and seeing the sun set behind Canocti. I think it's one of the more beautiful places. I've been in vacations in different parts of the world and countries, and that vision for me is one of the best. So I think we have that going for us. I think not looking kind of back to the future, so to speak, but I remember growing up here. I remember a lot of people coming and visiting. Clearlake was the hub. This is where everybody came for vacation, where people came because the restaurants were busy, and I want to see that again. It's not going to be what it was. It never could be, but I know through good leadership, through good marketing, and through the strategic plan that was set forth while I was on council to make us a cleaner, safer, and better managed city is exactly what we need to keep going.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sloden.
If appointed, let me turn it on. If appointed, what would you like to achieve between now and November 2020?
Well, obviously, we need to work together. I believe in governance and, again, transparency. Some of the things that when I left and shared with the former mayor, that were priorities are the rental inspection ordinance. I'd like to see that come back and would focus on that. And again, just working with the police department, code enforcement, public works to see the good things that are started continue, and then how we can improve upon that. As I said, I'm a self-starter. If I see something that needs to be fixed, I will share that with council and see if I can get consensus to bring it forward and work with staff to make change.
Thank you.
Councilmember Overton.
What would you do as a council member if you are unsure of how to vote on a particular issue that was presented?
Well, I tried to study the packet, obviously, before we came to the meeting, but if there were things that are unclear, I have no problem asking for additional information or during additional research. There were there were a few situations where we had to table an item for additional work to be done.
Councilmember Harris.
As you know, the city council must make decisions regarding the creation of policies and programs that are sometimes controversial. How would you balance making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, while even though sometimes they personally are somewhat difficult for you?
Well, we had that, and I think one good example of that was Measure V. Some of the information and data that had come in was the expense was going to be too much for a community that is economically challenged. We needed to really look at the numbers and do the research, and with the data that was presented, we could show fairly clearly that the right way to proceed was to move forward with Measure V, because in the long term, our vehicles would run longer, need less maintenance, those types of things. So, and then of course, what really rings in my memory is wanting to have a no-grow city, and we had to move the council meeting into the Clearlake Community Hall just to fit the number of people who wanted to speak, had very strong opinions on how we should proceed. And but you have to listen to weigh out all the information and make the best choice you can.
Thank you. Mr. Purdock, is there anything else that you would like to tell us that we haven't specifically asked you about?
Not in particular, Mr. Mayor. I just, I have been in the community for a long time. I know the work product that I can do is reflective of what I've already done. So I'm kind of a tested individual, and of course I would bring that to the community. My current employment, I am working with the community. I don't see myself as a politician. I see myself as a public servant, and I think there's a distinct difference between the two. If I need to, it's not an ego thing, it's what can we get done. We work better together than we do as individuals and in partnerships, and I think that's exactly what we need to do to bring the city of Clear Lake forward and actually meet the goals of our strategic plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Purdock.
Am I excused?
Yes.
Okay.
I could say something there. Melissa, would it be okay to take a very short recess?
Just long enough for me to go to bed.
Next will be Miss
You didn't have to.
Miss McCarrick will be next.
Yeah.
Short break.
Very short.
Yep.
That's usually me taking the short break.
So, can I ask you a question?
Mr. Mayor, I'm back.
Okay, we will reconvene now with our last candidate.
We have
Two more?
Yes.
The other, our sixth one,
No, we had 6.
our fifth one showed
We
up.
only had 4.
6 total, 1 didn't show up.
Well, did
Two
the,
did not.
Ms. Shaw did not make it. We had Ms. McCarrick and Ms. Zane.
So Ms. Zanza did come later. She wasn't here.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
Sorry.
aware of that.
That was the question.
Okay, got it.
So Aaron. Hi, Ms. McCarrick. How are you this evening?
Very good. Glad it's a little bit cooler than yesterday.
Okay. Lost my cheat sheet here. Please introduce yourself and explain why you're interested in being appointed to city council.
My name is Erin McCarrick. I moved to Clearlake in 2017, became a voting resident in the beginning of 2018. And I would like to have the honor of serving with you all on the city council because I really love it here. And I came here and I knew this was going to be my home. And I have started a business in Clearlake. And through that process, I realized the steps that one needs to take. And look, I'm going to stand a little bit. Okay. So why I wanted to serve on the city council is because starting a business here, I realized that this is a great place to be, a great place to have a community, and I like to listen to everybody that I meet. I walk my dog every morning around Austin Park and get to know people who also walk their dog, get to know who's out in the morning, who's out in the evening. I've been talking to a lot of people who are residents here and business members here and listening to their concerns and hopes for the future of Clearlake. I know that I'm a very approachable person, and I feel like that's a very good asset to have on the city council. So I'd like to serve on the city council to continue the growth, attract external talent and investment, but also continue growth from within the city. So foster people who are starting businesses, foster entrepreneurs, foster people who want to start nonprofits here, as well as attracting external investment. That would be the goal to serve on the city council.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Slotin.
How has your experience, education, and/or work history prepared you to be a city council member?
I think the most recent education I had was getting an MBA at the University of San Francisco, and through that Jesuit program, we learned servant leadership, and that was really important as you lead in a business, as you lead in a community, as you lead in your family or friends. You want to serve others. You want to lead through serving others. So, which is exactly what an elected official should do, is what are the needs of the community? How can I be a leader for that? And I think that's what is needed here too. You are all serving your community, and I want to support the efforts that are already going on. All the work that is done before, all the plans that are happening within the city right now. The best type of leadership would be continue to serve those efforts to create that found work. So in terms of education, I learned a cornerstone of that, whether it be in business or not. Additionally, with that whole promoting from within, the best businesses, the most longevity, the least turnover is when you promote from within. I feel like the same would be said for a city. You'd have the best business longevity, community longevity if you're promoting and supporting from within. My work experience, I've had a long history in politics, and it's actually different for me because I'm used to going door to door and like getting to know people and working on electing folks that way. So this appointment is a little different scenario, but I have had a long history in politics and listening to people and advocating on their behalf through the state and federal government and city government throughout my life. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Overton.
Okay, so what do you know about the current issues that are facing Clearlake?
Getting out there and talking to people in preparation for this, and also just in terms of becoming a more active citizen. The roads have been an issue, the homelessness, and the somewhat transient issue. I think the other thing that I've heard from people is, I'm hesitating because I'm trying to put it in the right terms, is just ensuring that the steps to business creation and the steps to, starting a business are clear for folks who want to come to do this in Clearlake. And I think that sorry. Yeah, just consistency. Consistency in what is needed to start a business, what is needed to start nonprofits, what is needed to just work in the city of Clear Lake. So, the issues are the same ones that have come up numerous times in terms of the social services and roads and the image of Clear Lake. So, yeah.
Thanks. Councilmember Harris.
What do you perceive as the most important issues facing Clear Lake right now, and how do you feel like the council should handle those issues?
How should?
Yeah. I'd say communication and connectivity. Communication and connectivity are not necessarily a specific issue like roads or homelessness or transient or education, economic security, but if people who serve on the city council continue the increased communication that has been happening over the past year about what good things are happening in the city and connection to the community, listening to them and speaking with them, I think those are two of the most important tenets that would help the city thrive. It's not necessarily an issue itself, but if you build that foundation of having good communication and good connectivity and consistency with how to get things done here, with zoning, with planning, with having a consistent board and city council, then I think that everything else will continue to fall into place. Measure V is happening, people are investing in the community, entrepreneurship is happening, the marketing committee is a fantastic development. So these things are happening. So it's just a matter of having that communication and hope and leadership that is needed. And I think that I would be very beneficial in that because I'm accessible and I listen and I deliver on what people express their needs as, minus some of my stage fright.
What do you believe are the three greatest strengths of the city of Clear Lake?
Community. That's a very broad aspect, but there are things for people to do everywhere. There's the parks, there's youth groups, there's an event every weekend. There's the nonprofits you can join. If you wanted to get involved and volunteer, you could find a place to volunteer every day of the week. So there is that element out there that's already there. So this community of like, we are here to help you. We just want you to get involved, which is harkens back to that communication. Like it's there. Let's get people on it and doing it. So what are the best strengths? The natural beauty. You can't get around that. And I was in our area back there. We were talking about how when you look at Clear Lake on the map, an image comes up of a gentleman who calls himself the mayor of Clear Lake. It's on Apple Maps, and I'm like, okay, we need to start working to like have that image come up and be the gorgeous lake when people do that. I mean, because we have to call Apple or call Google, but we can work on that. The natural beauty, the community, and I'd say the optimism. Right now, there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of optimism on this city council. There's a lot of optimism in the business community. And I think that, and again, that harkens back to the other tenet that I was talking about, consistency. If we just consistently support what people are already doing, then it'll continue to thrive.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Slutton.
If appointed, what would you like to achieve between now and November 2020?
I would love to have maybe a weekly, like consistent outdoor public get-together. Nothing to charge. I was fortunate enough to be invited to go to the Thursday breakfasts, and that's a consistent thing every day, every week, and you learn so much from each other. And to have that in a public forum where there's as many people can join as want to, go to Austin Park and sit down and just say it's a listening session or it's a resource session. There's, again, like I said, there's people who know how to navigate the business environment or the social services environment in the city, and there's folks who don't know how to do that. And there's a lot of resources that are happening right now, the housing fair, some of the growth forums that are held here, but to have something maybe monthly or weekly or bi-monthly open to everybody. I would love to see that happen. So that was something that I would like to accomplish.
Thank you. Councilmember Overton.
What would you do as a council member if you are unsure of how to vote on a particular issue?
I'd say the preparation for the vote and understanding all the unintended consequences of the vote, kind of playing it out in your mind. One thing I've learned in the industry that I'm in is there are many unintended consequences when a law is passed. And if you don't kind of play it out in your mind, how it can go and who might be affected, and if you don't play that out, then you're going to be, you can't have it be any sort of, obviously you excuse yourself if there's a conflict of interest, but you can't have it be anything that is in the heat of the moment. You have to say, how does this play out 5 years down the road? And especially if, you're given the information beforehand, talk to those who are affected. If it affects the police department, talk to the police department. Talk to every side of the issue so you know if this goes into effect. Even people who oppose it, say, what do you think about this? And use that to make the best informed decision. Yeah.
Councilmember Harris.
The city council must make decisions regarding the creation of policies and programs that may be controversial at times. How would you balance making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though it may personally be difficult for you?
I think it goes back to that servant leadership. Elected officials are there to take information that they have garnered from the relationships that they have, talking to the city administration, city offices, but you're also a servant of those who are in the city. And so balancing the majority will and the informed agencies or organizations that would be affected of that, finding a balance between that, and also going back to precedent, looking to see how maybe a controversial issue was handled in the past, and how it, again, looking ahead, how it plays out 5 years down the road. So how did this previous issue affect it, and how has it played out down the road? And I think the more information that you can get, the better. As this communication factor of pumping it out, the Facebook page is doing a really good job of getting information out there, but putting it on multiple platforms and getting as much feedback as possible and diversifying the way that feedback is given, maybe not just always at the city council meetings, but Facebook comments are real. That's a new form of communication, or a current form of communication, and social media comments are there, and looking at who's commenting and making sure that they feel they have a voice. So just taking all elements into consideration and expanding the feedback as much as possible in terms of those controversial votes.
Thank you, Ms. Carrick. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you'd like to impart to us as a closing comment?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I feel is really going to be vital for whoever sits on that board. And I'm thrilled at all the candidates who have applied to sit on this board, and it makes me very optimistic about the future of Clearlake. It's that communication to the public, from the public, that connection to the community, the consistency with the regulations that are being passed, looking to precedent, looking to leaders in the community. And I personally think that I would be a very good asset for the council to integrate my past experience and also what I'm currently doing in the industry that is going to contribute a decent amount of support to what Clearlake becomes in the future. So it's, yeah. And I do think that it would continue to promote growth from within for the, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
You know it's hard, we've been there.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a drinking fountain. But I am very optimistic.
They took it out.
Did I go back out?
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself and explain why you're interested in being appointed to the council?
I'm Christina Lucia Asanza, and what brought me here to wanting to apply for this position is the passion that I have. On the outside of here, I'm also the founder of a nonprofit organization. We are providing services for individuals with special needs, children. I have a deep passion for public service. I spent 11 years advocacy for my personal children, and I learned that there's an entire subgroup of individuals within our community that need someone to bring forth awareness of what they're struggling with. And with all due respect, that's something that's not been mentioned once within this city. There's also a second group of minorities that I have a strong bond with in the community. I'm driven to bring awareness on other issues that some of you are not aware of. And if I'm elected for this position, then I would bring a lot more insight of what's happening within the community. And so that's what's brought me here today to apply for this position.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Slotin.
How has your experience, education, and/or work history prepared you to be a city council member?
Well, that's a good question. I have management experience. I used to manage 3 properties. That alone was very knowledgeable, both on a legal level and administrative level. I want to point out that we also shouldn't really focus on the educational part, because as a city council body, we work together. It's not just one person doing one task. And so I also have the ability to work with a multitude of tasks. I can learn fast. I'm well-rounded. I can work in groups. I have strong leadership skills that could be implemented for this community. I think that this community needs new leadership. Even though it's for a short period, I could bring a lot of strong, fresh insight with the skills that I have, based on my leadership skills on the outside of here. So with the administrative part, that's something that I'm familiar with. However, with the budgeting, that's something I also can learn. I don't have much experience with that. However, again, this is a team effort, and it's something that I'm willing to take on and learn.
Thank you. Council Member Overton.
So what do you know about the current issues that's facing Clearlake?
So, can you be more specific? Are you wanting to know about anything specific?
No, just what do you know about any of the issues that are happening here in Clearlake?
Right, so specifically with children with special needs, we have 500 children in our district alone and growing with autism. We have a high rate of poverty families. I personally have to travel 2 hours just to get proper services for my children. I've spoken with other families. They don't have a lot of resources in this community for their children. We don't have OT, we don't have speech, although that's provided in schools. It's still important to have that option on the outside in our community. That's something that parents should have. It shouldn't be a struggle, or they should not be able to not get to those resources because they're 2 hours from any agency. So that's one. More autism awareness. We have that growing community. We don't have a lot of services, like I said, for these individuals. So that's something that if we had formed a committee for the special needs community, you would see a lot more proactive individuals coming in. And I'm not just saying that, but I do have a lot of support too, and people would be willing to come in. So that's something that I would bring to as part of my leadership skills and personal knowledge that's happening. We also have a growing community of Hispanics. I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of, but we have the growing community so much. You know, I have the opportunity of working side by side in the pear factory with grandparents, grandfathers, teenagers, and these individuals are hard workers. This community is very proactive. They engage with the community. They're out there using and exercising all of the parks that we have, and I think that we also need to form a committee for these individuals so that we can expand opportunities for them and understand what else we can do to help them.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
What do you perceive as the most important issues facing Clearlake, and how should this city council handle those issues?
There's a lot. Well, there's a lot of things going on in this county. One of them with the police department, there's that communication issue, the radio, the technical part that needs to be addressed. I think that when our officers are on call, we need to give them the best capability to communicate with their dispatch so that they can attend to any kind of urgency matters in the community. I think that we have a lot of the budgeting is an issue. We have a lot of resources that we need to pull in. I think that what you guys are doing to bring in a grant writer is great, but I think that we can also think of other ways to expand and raise money up for what we need. The potholes are an issue, but you guys have basically done a really good job from what I've seen so far on a lot of the issues that we have here in the town. The only part that I'm really seeing the issue is with bringing in more funding, bringing in more tourists. A lot of that is trying to reach out, marketing, getting Lake County on the map. It's hard because we're so far out, but I think that if we can come up with some creative way to lure people in and get new initiative ideas by, again, going back to creating these new committees, we can make that a possibility. So,
Thank you. Okay, what do you believe are the three greatest strengths of Clearlake?
you know, living in a small town, people say it's boring. We're very tight as a community. We know one another. We know whose neighbor who's with who. It brings us closer. We're able to really implement, you guys are able to implement ideas faster because we're in a small community, so therefore we don't face a lot of we face challenges, but we're able to work through them because we realize that being in a small community, we need to really work in a team rather than letting our egos get in the way. That's one of them. We have compassion. We're a diverse community. We have, like I said, a growing community with special needs children and Hispanic community. So we have a lot of diversity that's coming and that we can really, really use this to our advantage. And then the third one would be that we have hospitality. That's something that can attract people too from out of county. We have one of the cleanest airs, I'm sure you guys are aware, so we need to really advocate and put on the map that, you know, we have a lot more to offer here than anywhere else.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sloat.
If appointed, what would you like to achieve between now and November 2020?
Can you be more specific?
Is there anything you would like to achieve if you are appointed between now and 2020,
Right,
November 20?
so are we talking about me personally or
Yes.
as a unity?
On council.
On council.
Well, you know, I would like to, again, go back to creating new committees. We're going to bring new issues. That's going to bring in new revenue. A lot of these people are starting up businesses. A lot of them are really skyrocketing with their business. We can really use that, collaborate with them in the community. And I think that should be something to be brought up. But special needs community, our agency as well, that's something we'd be willing to work with in collaboration with the county. So I think that starting new business, but focusing on certain groups that are being left out, we need to really pull them in and create new committees so we can understand them better. I would like to also focus on what's going on within the community, so improving our roads, improving issues that we're having within the budgeting part. So that's another thing. I would like to really focus on the budgeting. How can we come up with more cost-effective ways in bringing revenue in to pay for a lot of the things that we're having to pay for? I've seen the budget, it's a lot, and I think that if we have some new insight and if we could just kind of be more creative, there's some possible way to save some money and some extra money for the community as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Overton.
What would you do as a council member if you were unsure of how to vote on a particular issue?
Or unsure. Well, you know, I would listen to the public. They're the ones that are in charge. You guys are here to maintain everything, but ultimately what the public says is what we have to do. You've taken an oath to do what's right for the public, invest what's right for our children, for our activities, for our future. So I would consult with the public. I would never consult or do anything on my own. So.
Councilmember Harris.
The city council must make decisions regarding the creation of policies and programs that may be controversial at times. How would you balance making decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may personally be difficult, somewhat difficult?
Well, again, I would have in mind that with everything that I'm doing, that we're doing as a team that's best for the public, I would, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
No problem.
Sorry.
Yeah, the city council must make decisions regarding creation of policies and programs that may be controversial at times. How would you balance making decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may personally be somewhat difficult for you?
Again, you all have taken an oath to do what's best for the public. So if something, no, wait. You know, I would, again, have to do something that the public knew that was good for them. I couldn't just do something knowing that it would go against it. So again, I would have to do what they would tell us what's right and what they need, because it's about their needs, so.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Zonda, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to give us?
Yes, sir. I would like to just leave you guys with this thought that I know I'm competing against people that have prestigious backgrounds, have many years experience in what we're all competing for, but it's not a competition. It's who's the best that can not only fulfill those administrative duties, but also connect with the public. Now, we're at a point in our community where we have new issues, and it's important that we understand them now and not ignore them, because we have a very high proactive community. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind when you're picking the next candidate. Make sure it's someone with fresh ideas, connect with people. It's not about a status, it's about being a part of something bigger than ourselves and bringing forth new ideas to help the community grow together. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pardon me? Yeah. At this time, there was a sixth candidate which was not able to make it. We will actually consider that candidate as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hear what she had to say. But we're going to bring all the candidates back in now. And I think we'll go to public comment first.
Well, she's going to get them now, so.
Thought we were going to leave them in
I
there.
thought we were gonna leave them out until we talked and had public comment. I thought you were gonna leave them out until we had public comment.
Well, too late now.
No, I didn't understand it that way, but,
That's
As
all
I
right.
said, it's uncomfortable when you guys do that.
Sometimes it can be.
That's what it
Could
is.
be.
well, you can send them back out if you're, let me, what do you think?
I thought it was somewhat uncomfortable too to discuss.
I think it's uncomfortable for them and it's uncomfortable for us to discuss stuff in front of them. Do we have to do that?
I think you can do it however you like.
I say take them back out. Oh, we had discussed about not bringing them back in until we did some other discussions. Yeah, I know.
To be honest, if they are uncomfortable with the public's opinions of them, then this is probably not the best situation for them to be in. So I would say that they could stay in.
Okay.
That's my
He wants to
personal
stay. I'm good with that.
I'm not, but I'm overruled.
What happens when you leave the stage? Okay, at this time, we're going to open up comments from the public. So if you would like to, anyone would like to get up and, okay then, we'll have a few getting up here.
I just want to make sure, as someone's coming forward, that we left the email that I got that Mr.
Yes,
Mike Van Diver had
and-
wanted to
and-
share with me.
Yeah, so I'll share that.
You don't have to share it publicly, but he just wanted it shared with you, so I wanted to make sure you knew.
Yes, sir, state your name and,
For the record, and speak into the microphone. Okay, I'm Conrad Colbrandt, and lived here a while. I'm rebuilding after the sulfur fire, finally, so we're making some progress. And I'm really pleased at the applicants that we have coming forth today. A lot of different talent in a lot of different areas, and I think every one of them is worthy of consideration. I think that Russ Purdock, though, has some of the more the qualities that we need in a council person. Some of the candidates are more tuned towards marketing and other aspects which are really important for the city. But this is a short term of 18 months. And I think that Russ has the connections, the knowledge, the budgetary information. Alan's doing a great job just getting in here, and I know that I think Russ had helped to develop some of the infrastructure, some of the backbone of the council, of the policies and procedures. He knows what those are, and I think he can maybe be the best candidate to get the show going quickly and know where he's starting from and not have a big learning curve to get forward. I think some of the others will be wonderful candidates, maybe to run for election or, to get a little more experience. But the marketing aspect is extremely important, and I know a lot of the candidates have that background, but that's not the day-to-day drudgery of running a council. It's not the day-to-day items, the infrastructure, all the things that this council puts forth to make the community better has to get into place to some extent before the marketing can even take place. So I'd like you to consider Russ very strongly. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Colbrand.
My name's Joan Mingori, and that was all very well said. I too, I want to stress that this city council has been moving forward. It has made with Alan, and before that with Greg, our police chief and our prior police chief, we've been making some incredible strides. I don't want to see that go away. And part of the thing that I want to stress is that having someone like Russ Purdock come in with his expertise, you don't have, believe me, I've been on school board since December, and they're telling me it takes a year to get all the policies really down, even though I've gone to trainings. And so you're not talking a long-term position here. He can jump in and be ready and trained and going. And I'd like to keep that momentum that you have all started here and continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mangori. Anyone else like to get up and speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Dave Hughes, and a resident of Lake County since 1974. And on the Clearlake Highlands issue, I want you to know we talked about that in the Incorporation Committee. We decided Highlands was a lot more to write on a postcard. And we also thought that every time the lake is mentioned, Clear Lake, maybe the city of Clear Lake would be getting some free advertising. So anyway, there was a lot of
Glad to
thought.
know that.
There was a lot of discussion put into it. I agree that we have some good candidates here. I think they're concerned citizens, or they wouldn't have put their name in. They've submitted their applications, and one of the things I noticed on the applications I looked at is there's two questions: the names of city commissions or committees you've worked on, and county commissions or committees you've worked on. And a lot of those are blank. And that's nothing against the candidates, other than I think I'd like to see candidates that have maybe lived here longer, that have been involved in the community, serving on committees, serving on the chamber, being on the planning commission is a good step to becoming a city council member. Just a little more involvement in the community. And I would encourage these people to stay involved and get more involved in the community, trying to serve on some of those committees and commissions. There's plenty of them out there. So I think I'm going to agree with the few people ahead of me. I think Russ has we're looking for the most qualified candidate. And I think Russ can hit the ground running. Again, he doesn't have to have a learning curve to figure out what the heck he's doing on the city council. He's been there, he's done that. And I'll just leave it at that. I think he's the most qualified at this point. I hadn't really thought about it, but it is a short-term appointment. And if you're looking for the most qualified, I think he's it. I would encourage the other candidates to, again, stay involved, get involved, be more involved, and help figure out what's going on in the community and help the community move forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else?
Denise Lucelo, business owner, former mayor, council member, just as nervous on this side as I was up there.
But you still do very well.
Well, thank you, but to me, if I had my choice, we wouldn't be here today, because hopefully I would still be there and not had to have resigned. But I'd like to advocate for Russ also in this important time, because again, we've had a council member seat now open twice in a short amount of time. So we're already kind of losing ground. So to me, can I remind a little bit of what we do? Policy and procedures. I heard a lot of things today that I agree with and have their purpose in the community, but we are here to govern and set a safe community for all. We don't have time to train right now for the Brown Act. They're going to have to maybe run and get a little more experience in those kinds of things, especially if they have a short time to do it. We need someone with the most experience and track record of success. And sitting up there, Russ has that, other than, of course, Joyce in your long term. So please remember the issues that we faced sitting up there when we had conflicts of interest and even lawsuits. So remember who was next in the vote line as well. Russ was next in that last election. So I think the people themselves would agree he should be next. And I'm done because I'm as nervous as I ever was.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone else?
Why have you come?
Members of the council, I know you all have missed me.
State, yeah, I know. State your
Rick
name
Mayo.
anyway.
Rick Mayo, citizen of Clearlake, been here over 37 years before Clearlake became, the Highlands became a city. I know you all have missed me since I've been gone. I'm back temporarily. Anyway, you had a large array of candidates. They're very passionate. They all have their uniqueness, the things that they want to bring to this community, which is commendable, but you need somebody to hit the ground running. The things that they're going to have to learn in 18 months is like when I got appointed to the Planning Commission, and I only had about a 9-month term left on it. Things I had to learn, I mean, you got to hit the ground running and be able to comprehend a lot of things real fast. So, Russ Purdock was mayor here for a long time. When we had that major fire here was Sulphur Bank fire. He was a contact person for the community. He knew exactly the procedures and everything, how to deal with things and to work with the other council people that we had. And I'd just like for you to think about all the things that the city is presently doing, and again, echoing Denise, moving forward, we need to keep that momentum going, and like to see some of the other candidates with their passion to get involved with all the committees, planning commission and so forth, and learn what the community is about. So I appreciate you taking that in advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Freeman. I am a resident here of Clearlake for 20 years now. My parents bought a house here in '78, and I kind of became a summer kid. Then all of a sudden, I became a resident here when I graduated from high school in '96. I'm here on behalf of Erin McCormick. I met her actually during the Valley Fire. A lot of you guys know me here. I'm not nervous talking, but for some reason you put me in a podium and I have people staring at me. I am very nervous. So I met her one day at the American Legion. I was sitting there talking to a friend of mine. They were doing a hiring process for the Valley Fire cleanup. And she looked at me and she's like, "Do you want a job?" And I'm like, "What? I own a company. I've owned a company, for quite a few years now." And she's like, "Oh, really? You're just sitting here?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, then guess what?" She got me a job. I'm like, told my manager, "You're taking over. You're there." She was facilitating a hiring spree for over 300 people that she literally got hired within 2 weeks of a time. The Valley Fire was the largest cleanup effort in the state of California at that time. It's now changed since the Tubbs Fire. She's also came back and did the Clayton Fire cleanup. I became really good friends with her, and I found out right away she loved this place. All she talked about was this, that, about coming back to Clearlake. What can we do to make it better? And, just kept going on and on. And I was like, okay. When I found out that there was going to be an open seat for city council, I actually thought about going for it. She told me she was. I was like, I'm stepping back. I think you can do an awesome job at this. I think that you've only been here for 3 years now, basically like every other weekend, and then all of a sudden she just moved up here. I was like, wow, okay, you are interested here. She definitely knows how to get stuff going. She is now like business owner here in Clearlake with an industry that was really tough to get into, and it's still straight line. She's going for it. All I really have to say is that she doesn't know a lot of people here, but she has really good ideas, and I really hope you guys consider her as a city council member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brett. Anyone else?
that mean you're losing weight?
Probably not. Pete Lustelo, City of Clearlake, prior resident, real close resident now, but we have a business here, a couple businesses here in town. And probably been more involved than I ever thought I would be with things in Clearlake growing up here. But what I have noticed is that, first off, I think that there is a lot of good candidates for this position that spoke today. I think they have some great ideas, but I have to agree with what has been said by some of the other citizens here that there's a lot to learn. Consistency is so important right now with what all the changes that we've had, that consistency is important. I think the city is going in a great direction. I think that some of the people that spoke today, if they stayed involved, their ideas and stuff are great ideas. But I think you need that consistency that Russ brings to the table with knowing what he knows, being a citizen here for all the years he's been here. His heart's in the right place, and like everybody else had mentioned, he'll hit the ground running. It's you know, when my wife Denise was on city council when she first started, there's a big learning curve you have to learn, and he won't have to deal with that. So I would hope that you would go with Russ. I think that he would be the best person, and then hopefully the other people stay involved and they continue to you know, spend time doing their public service.
Thanks, Pete. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back. Before we started deliberations, I just want to also reiterate, all of you did a great job. I know how difficult it is to stand at that podium and speak to us and respond to questions that hopefully you think you have the answers to, but it's really daunting, and to put yourself forward to that, I appreciate it a lot. All of you should, I reiterate what some comments have been, all of you hopefully will stay involved with the city and join committees. There's planning commission things that, openings that come up time to time. We need your participation, and I definitely want to say that. So with that, we will start our deliberations. Does anyone want to come forward with any comments?
I want to did
Vice
some.
Mayor Slotin.
Again, I know how difficult it is to stand up there, because when Russ was appointed, he and I were standing in front of that thing, so I know exactly what it's like.
And we're both nervous.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Mr. Russ Purdock has a little bit of edge here, and I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that he doesn't quit halfway through and find another police position someplace. You have to promise that if he is elected to do this. Again, all the candidates, amazing group of people, were a lot of optimism in the city, and it shows by the amount of applicants and the quality of the applicants. That's my comment at this point.
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I would reiterate the general sense that Russ has the ability to step right in, having the knowledge and experience, having been on the council, involved in the community in many different aspects. And I will say that there were some really super qualified applicants for this position, and I would really recommend participation in the council meetings outside of personal agenda items. So to show up on a regular basis to the council meetings, to have a real good feel and understanding for what's taking place on a regular basis outside of things that directly affect you, you know. It's just really super important, especially if you have a point in you or some kind of an idea in you about what civil service would be, or, you know, participation in a future election, for example. You really want to get a good feel as to what's taking place so that you can hit the ground running, you know. This was kind of thrusted upon people, but it's nice to see some faces, you know, here. So I would say that my vote here is going to go to Russ Purdock.
Councilmember Overton.
probably the most impressive group of people that I have seen apply for an opening like this. I am so impressed that are...
What are we? Chopped liver?
Sorry, guys, I'm saying it one time. That every one of you guys have really, no. That every one of you guys have just wonderful qualities of an experience and the enthusiasm, and you guys were already participating in city stuff, so you can't count that. So you guys were planning commissioners, come on. So I'm talking about general everyday public people. So I am very impressed with every one of you guys. You guys have some great ideas, and actually my mind's going every time one of you guys would say something. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. So if you notice, I have whole backs of things that are wrote down and take everything that every one of you guys have said very seriously. Unfortunately, it is that this is a short term. We need to keep going because our mayor left and our past mayor left, and Russ does have the experience to keep us going. But we do have an election coming up. I agree that, you guys should participate more in the council meetings and get to know how the city really runs. And I think every one of you guys have great opportunities to win an election. So I do hope that you get more involved and that we see you at council meetings. And hopefully I see you guys running for city council, because I'm very impressed with every one of you.
Okay. I would agree with my fellow council members' comments. I definitely would like to see all of you come to council meetings, whether you're on council or not. Patty, you do a great job of that week after week. This is a short-term, 18-month position, and clearly Russ has the most experience with this council, with the way we're going. And we do want that consistency, or that to be able to keep moving forward without any learning curves. So I'm going to also be going along with Russ as my choice. So that's all I have. Does anyone else have any other remarks? Yeah, he did, more or less.
More or less.
So I think do we need a formal?
It would be appropriate.
Pardon me?
It would be appropriate to have that
Okay, a roll call.
motion, a
right,
motion
would you-
and a second. In the resolution, there is an item number 1, which states pursuant to Government Code Section 36512, and it leaves a blank space with the name if you turn to the resolution. I would need that read out loud.
Other side.
It's a motion and
This way.
Make the motion, and,
Resolution?
yes.
No.
Section number 1 is hereby appointed, then read the name and then,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion pursuant Government Code Section 36512, Russell Purdock to be appointed to the position of City Council member.
Their motion's been made.
Is that okay? Yeah, all right. Second.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second has been made by Councilmember Overton. Roll call or?
roll call.
All right. Proceed.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Slutin?
Aye.
Mayor Kramer?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Welcome back.
And do we need to read the resolution out with his name in it?
Again, I want to thank all of you for coming, and I'd like to see you back here. Judges Breakfast is a great place to network, Mr. Claffey, as I told you this morning, and Mrs. McCarrick, and all of you. Stay involved, and, when the next election comes around, you'll be ready for it. So, thanks again. Moving on.
That's it.
Mr. Mayor?
That's about it, isn't it?
Mr. Mayor, may I just add?
Sure.
So with the appointment of Mr. Purdock, we will have the official swearing-in ceremony at the regular city council meeting on Thursday of the 13th.
Okay.
But we should clarify that actually, our budget workshop starts at 4 o'clock, so it's earlier than normal.
So please be there,
Yeah, so it's
even though
actually
you
gonna
may
be
not
at 4.
officially be sworn in.
No, the swearing-in will be before the budget workshop?
We'll do it at 4 o'clock.
We'll do it at
Okay.
4, so I stand corrected.
So you can officially take part in that.
Take part anyway, he just can't.
And make sure you pick up your budget book before you leave today.
Okay, I think that's all. We will adjourn at 5:01.
Use your hammer.